If you tell me my reward is going to be 2 marshmallows in 15 minutes, then I better be getting my 2 marshmallows in 15 minutes or I'm gonna be pissed. Hello, and welcome to A Briefcase of Luxury, a place where we love to chat about all things related to life, learning, and luxury. Thank you so much for choosing to watch this video. If you've been around before, then welcome back, and if you are new, welcome. To get you caught up, I am a business professor by day and a luxe lover by night, and the underlying theme to my videos this year is how I plan to stop being so stupid with my money. Yes, I teach strategic decision making, and yes, I make bad decisions all the time when it comes to shopping. Take what you will from it. If you are interested, I'll share links to a couple of my videos below where I talk about all the different ways I've blown my money when it comes to luxury shopping, whether that shopping was planned or on impulse. But either way, this year, 2023, is a time for reflection and for new financial goals because I just don't want to be in my 60s with nothing in my name but a closet full of fancy purses. Not even a closet at this point if I don't have a house. More like a trash bag full of fancy purses. So one thing I've been doing is swapping out the luxury haul and unboxing videos that I typically watch on YouTube and watching more finance videos instead. I'm focusing on how to grow my wealth, how to stop spending money on unnecessary things, and it's all been great. Now, to be completely honest, personal finance isn't rocket science or anything. It does get really repetitive, I'll admit that, but it's still a good personal reminder from time to time, you know? But one thing I am so tired of is finance YouTubers singing the praises of delayed gratification as the savior to all of our poor financial decisions. I just can't. Because delayed gratification on its own is suboptimum at best, and in some cases will most definitely backfire. I present Exhibit A. If you want to know why, please keep watching. On the bright side, if you want to know how to make delayed gratification work for you, please keep watching as well. So, since what is not defined cannot be defeated, let's first start with defining delayed gratification. Simply put, delayed gratification is the ability to resist the temptation of an immediate reward in exchange for a larger, more valuable reward in the future. It's a key concept that comes from psychology, but we have seen how it can be applied to various aspects of our lives, right? From how we can better handle our health and diet to better controlling what would otherwise be out of control shopping behaviors. But before we jump into how other fields have incorporated this concept, let's go back to its roots for a second and let's talk about marshmallows. In the 1960s, at the Bing Nursery School at Stanford University in California, psychologist Walter Mischel conducted a little study with little people, aka children. In this study, these children were left alone in a room with a marshmallow, and they were told that they could eat it immediately if they wanted to, but the big people, aka the adults, had to step out for a moment. Now, if these children were willing to wait for 15 minutes until the adults could come back, they could get a larger reward in the form of 2 marshmallows. Right? So 2/3 of the children, so not all of them, were able to wait for the larger reward. When we follow up with these children later in life, we find that those who were able to delay gratification and wait, basically, were more successful in either their academic achievements, in terms of their social functioning, or emotional regulation. Now, on the other hand, the children who were unable to delay gratification, they had more difficulties in these areas. And now this test has been replicated many times over the years with more than just marshmallows, and it's a classic in the field of psychology. Fast forward to today, we talk about delayed gratification as an important life skill that highlights our level of self-control and the ability to think about long-term consequences when it comes to our immediate actions, right? And like in the study, we want to think that people who opt for delaying gratification are going to be more successful in life because they are better able to plan, to set goals, and to resist immediate temptations that may distract them from achieving longer-term goals. So let's talk about some of the common pros about delayed gratification that we seem to overemphasize, and I want to shed light on this through the lens of luxury shopping specifically. Delayed gratification can allow individuals to invest time and resources in the present to achieve a more significant goal or reward in the future. So we've all heard that argument, right? Buy one small leather good now because that's all you can afford at the moment, or save up the money for a larger purchase later, like an actual purse, for instance, especially if the only reason why you are buying the SLG right now is because that's the only thing you can afford and it's something from the brand. You don't want to walk away empty-handed, right? That makes sense. But at the end of the day, you'll end up with nothing but a bunch of small leather goods and not being able to buy anything more. So I get it. If every time you get $1 and you spend that dollar, you'll never be able to afford anything more than $1. But if you can hold off, save those dollars, you can eventually make a larger purchase. Math. Improved self-control can be useful in achieving big goals and overcoming obstacles you're likely to face along the way. Now listen, a large majority of luxury shoppers are aspirational shoppers, meaning luxury purchases are, for us, people like me, not the daily norm. And so it's not like for the majority of people we can afford to make one large luxury purchase after another. We're not out there buying classic Chanel flaps at $10K a pop, bag after bag, day in and day out. Now, delayed gratification can help us prioritize our spending so we don't waste money on an item because it's available now at the expense of the item we really want. So for instance, if I had enough money, let's say $15,000 set aside for a Birkin, and I'm waiting for an offer from the boutique, I could get tired of waiting and take that money to buy something else of the same value. But then if that offer came through the next day, I'd be SOL, since I would have already spent the money. Now, if I had $30,000 set aside, so enough money for the Birkin and then some, well, that's a different conversation altogether. And why are you watching this video? Delayed gratification can also help us make more thoughtful decisions, right? It can help combat YOLO or FOMO tendencies. There's really not much to say about this one because we all get it, right? Hype bag is released. We want hype bag. We go out and buy hype bag. We regret buying hype bag. Not all the time, but sometimes, only because it was an unplanned impulsive purchase. Delayed gratification can help us practice the virtues of patience and help prevent making decisions that aren't carefully thought out. This may not warrant a point on its own, but it kind of sums everything up. Delayed gratification can help us keep our eye on the ultimate prize. So yes, we do have better self-control, we are less impulsive, and at the end of the day, we are learning to be patient and that good things come to those who wait. But I have a problem with this. So at first glance, it does seem like delayed gratification is the key to making better financial choices. But yes, let's start to get into the buts, because there are some really, really big buts. 3 really, really big buts, in my humble opinion. First, let's jump back to our marshmallow experiment, since that is the origin point of this concept. One thing we often fail to mention about the marshmallow experiment is what happened within those 15 minutes of waiting and the various coping mechanisms the children tried to implement, with the marshmallow right in front of them serving as a constant cue, a constant reminder about the immediate reward or the larger reward to come. How the children interacted with the marshmallow within those 15 minutes were crucial. Focusing on the reward, for instance, increased the child's frustration and ultimately decreased the level of gratification. Only when they were able to successfully distract themselves by either singing or dancing or even forcing themselves to take a nap so the 15 minutes would go by quicker, basically doing everything in their power not to think about or pay attention to the reward in front of them, were they only then able to delay gratification and have still high levels of gratification at the end. That's one big caveat. The other 2 have to do with the other 2 conditions of the experiment. Number 1, the reward was known. You know you are going to get 2 marshmallows. That's what you get. There's no, you may get 2 marshmallows, you may get more, you may just get the original, or surprise, surprise, the marshmallows have gone bad in those 15 minutes, you get none. So there's no uncertainty or risk involved. Number 2, there's a clear time frame, a clear countdown. So in 15 minutes, you will get this reward. So count it down and it will happen. Well, we all know, again, that is just not how life works, right? Yes, the premise of delayed gratification is the ability to resist temptation for a known reward in exchange for a larger, more valuable reward in the future. But for how much larger and when? Well, in reality, those aren't quite factored in. So you can see how this gets a little problematic and why so many people fall into lifestyle creep or inflation as soon as we start to make a little bit more money. I say we because I 100% count myself in this category, and you can argue that every baby step of life creep is delayed gratification trying to play itself out. I'm going to hold out on buying that bag until I make a little bit more money, or I'm going to hold out buying that new car until I get that promotion. We set these known larger rewards for us based on these measurable financial milestones. And the more we forego these smaller, more immediate rewards, the more we feel owed for a larger reward in the future based on milestones we set for ourselves. Because if not, we're only going to be holding out for the unknown reward for an unknown period of time. I hope that made sense. In my case, I've talked about this before. I was a master of feeding myself that mantra. Don't look at that purse right now, wait until you get that job of your dreams, then you can get all the bags you want. Keep driving that beat up junker, wait until you have a 6-figure salary, then get the car of your dreams. Heck, get several cars to make up for lost time. Well, the future is here. I have the job of my dreams, I have the salary I've always wanted, and with that mentality I've developed over the years, it's time to pay the piper, and I'm the piper, and I'm demanding to be paid. And so here I am shopping at a rate I've never would have dared to shop at before, only because delayed gratification fueled this monster inside. I had all of these grand ideas of delayed gratification, and I fed myself that same promise. Hey, you don't need this now because you'll get something bigger and better in the future once you can afford it. You don't need to put it on a credit card until you have the money to pay for it. Yep, I was good. I lived by those rules until the future came, and one day I was like, hey, I can afford it now. I don't have to put anything on a credit card. And boom, just like that, lifestyle creep. The simplest way I can explain this is with food, especially if you're someone who's been involved in any type of sport where you have to cut weight, for instance, to make weigh-ins or a weight class. It's easy to diet and cut when you have a goal. It sucks, but it's easy, right? You may Pinterest food porn and watch food porn on YouTube all day long. You may make a giant list of all the things you're gonna eat after your meet or after weigh-ins are over. But you still have the willpower not to break diet because the goal is important. You can deny yourself a certain type of food because you have goals to get fit, to get in shape. You can cut out carbs, sugars, etc. And you could do good for a very long period of time until one day when you sit back and say, hey, I reached my weight goals, I see abs, I have the body I want, I've lost the weight, I'm gonna treat myself. And that there is a dangerous, dangerous slope that creates new eating disorders, ones that you likely did not have before in the past, only because you've gotten used to denying yourself something for so long. So I want to talk to you about some of the cons that we don't talk about enough when it comes to delayed gratification. Delaying gratification can actually mean missing out on immediate opportunities or experiences that may not be available in the future. For instance, you may choose to not go out to eat even if it's celebrating someone's birthday because you don't want to be tempted by food. You may choose to forego buying a hype bag when that hype bag was actually 100% you. Delaying gratification can sometimes lead to regret if we ultimately fail to achieve the long-term reward, or if the gratification we get out of the long-term reward was just not what we imagined. I think this happens when you build up your dream bag and you put it on a pedestal in your head, and then when you actually get your dream bag, it's just not what it was cracked up to be. And all that time you've stressed about saving for the bag, foregoing other opportunities or purchases, well, that time, energy, and resources could have been directed somewhere else. Delaying gratification can also lead to decreased motivation if the long-term goal seems too distant or too unattainable. So we're humans, we're easily distracted, easily discouraged, and sometimes these big goals no longer become fun. I mean, that's the entire concept of the debt snowball versus the avalanche approach, right? Even though it may save you money in the long run if you focus on paying off your debt with the highest interest rates first, we prefer the little wins in life to keep us motivated, and therefore we prefer to focus on paying off debt from smallest to largest instead. Most of the time, that helps increase our levels of motivation. Delaying gratification can most definitely increase levels of stress, especially if the entire time along the way you struggle to resist temptation or you feel overwhelmed by this focus on the larger future reward. Now, I'm not saying delayed gratification isn't a useful skill for improving self-control and decision-making. However, you have to consider your personal goals, your personal priorities, traits, and personality before deciding whether or not delayed gratification is going to work for you. For me, it didn't. It created horrible money habits that I'd never had before. I stressed over things I didn't used to think twice about. But here's how I learned to make delayed gratification work for me with some slight tweaks. I personally live by a wish list that ranks by priority what I want to or am allowed to buy. But here's the caveat, it's not just a wish list, it's a planning tool. Now next to each of those items, I write down the price, retail and tax, because that's how much I'm going to be out of pocket in total. Now next to that amount, I also write the amount that I have put aside specifically for that item. Now here's the other caveat. I'm also not someone that makes the list and just sticks to it. I review that list more or less every paycheck as I'm determining how much money I actually want to set aside that paycheck for a specific item. Now, if I wanted to add something to the list, that's great, but I'd have to put aside money for it, and well, that means I can either pull funds from another item or just wait until I have more money saved up. This is my way of making an unknown situation known. I know exactly what I want my reward to be, and by tracking how much money I have put aside for it and how much money I am putting aside for it actively at a frequent interval, like every paycheck, I can track down to the day I have enough to buy that item. So that is delayed gratification at its finest for me. I know what the reward is, I know how long it's going to take me to get it. So yes, this next point is on the pro list, and if this was an actual graded assignment, I'd probably take points off of it because something that's on a pro list should never ever be on a con list. But I really do think it's a good idea to have a waiting or cooling off period before making a purchase. So if you see something you really want but don't need, or it's not on your wish list, well, you can look at everything on your list and make another assessment. Is it worth bumping something off the list or pushing an item further down the list? Are you willing to pull funds from another item to make this purchase? Now, what I love about doing this is that it makes you wait, even long enough just to do some math. I know some people set time limits to see if they still want the item after a certain period of time, and that's fine too, and that cooling off period may be just what you need to avoid an impulsive purchase that you may regret later. But for me, if I'm not willing to pull funds from somewhere else, it's just something then that I can either bump further down the list or tell myself I actually really don't need it. Now this point ties into the one before. I'm constantly going over my list because I want to consider what else I could be doing with the money. Now the money that I'm putting aside for my purchases, yes, it could absolutely be used for something else. However, I already do have a personal rule of paying myself first, and putting aside funds for luxury purchases is actually part of my paying myself first practice. However, it's not the first. First and foremost, I do make sure I'm putting money that is funneled into retirement, brokerage, savings, HSAs, additional 401k accounts. So I make sure that those are fully funded first, and I have a set amount that gets funneled into those accounts every paycheck. Then based on my wish list, I have set amounts that I funnel into priority wish list items, so I know I can still meet the goals that I have by a certain date. I mean, at the end of the day, delayed gratification works only if you go by the conditions of the experiment. And life is one of those experiments we just don't have a whole lot of control over. So I'm not a fan when finance YouTubers just throw in delayed gratification and expect it to just play out as it should. If you're making the decision not to buy something now because of a promise you can have something nicer later, I mean, human nature just doesn't accept that premise that easily. So, in my case, I do my best to make the unknown known. I have a known goal based on my wish list items. I have a known amount that is being set aside for that goal every paycheck. And so that way I have an estimated timeline so I know when that goal can be realized. So I know how long I am delaying my gratification for, and along the way I'm constantly reassessing the level of gratification I will get out of reaching that goal. So for someone like me, that's the only way to make delayed gratification work. Now, if you are like me and you easily fall into these lifestyle traps and you easily feel like you've paid your dues, give these tricks a try to see if you can make delayed gratification work for you. Now, if you found this video helpful, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell, and I'll see you next time.